Okay, we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, we're going to learn about the Silver King Coalition rehabilitation work that was done last year. Brian and Davey will present. Just a little background on Brian Buck. He has lived in Utah since 1973. He obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Geology from the University of Wisconsin in 1973 and an MS in Geological Engineering from the University of Utah in 1976. He began a career working with the mining industry in 1976 and has experience in various positions, including government, mining company, and consulting. His experience in all facets of mining, including exploration, mine design, operations, permitting, government relations, and final mine closure and reclamation. He has presented lectures and short courses on mining topics, served as an expert witness related to mining practices, and since 2015 has been a researcher of Park City mining history and written articles on mining and for the Park Record newspaper here in town.
And he's our project manager.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. Don't jump ahead of me now. He is the project manager for the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History. You must have read my thing. Committee for the Park City Museum and did their planning and closing the Silver King Coalition mine shaft. Brian and his wife live in Park City since 2009. Also want to introduce you to Davey Jones. Mr. Jones grew up in England and moved from England to Utah in 2014. He obtained a BS in geography from Durham University in 2008. He began his career working in flood modeling, producing flood models and running risk matrices on US or UK, United Kingdom postcodes to aid the insurance and reinsurance industry in assessing property flood risk. 2015, with his move to Utah, he moved into consulting, where his primary focus was the production of FEMA flood maps. In this role, he also carried out a number of field inventories of mining districts, the Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program. Davey moved over to work for the AMRP in 2018 as project manager, where he has worked on several reclamation projects, including the defense-related uranium mines projects, which is a multi-agency project spearheaded by the Department of Energy. He has worked on reclamation projects all over Utah, including the Wasatch Front, Walker Mountains, and the Moab locality. He is the UDOGM project manager for closing the Silver King Coalition mine shaft. Highly qualified gentleman. Without further ado, let's learn about the project work going on in the Silver King Coalition. Thank you.
The Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History partnered with the Utah Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining to close the Silver King Coalition mine and the Thames mine shafts, where the Friends provided the engineering input and the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining did the procurement and provided the construction expertise. And so we're so grateful for the support of the state of Utah and the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining in this effort. So in this presentation, Davey and I would like to share with you kind of the story with lots of photographs of how we plugged and capped the Silver King Coalition mine shaft last year. You wanna
Yep.
just run it from the computer?
Yep.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. What's that? That would be great, and I will try to get another battery for it. Yeah, that's working. Yeah, or before, honestly.
Yeah.
It did work before. Donald, could you advance it one slide?
Sure. You just, where's the presentation? Well, thank you very much.
Any questions?
Just to clarify for us. This is the facility. Going up.
Here we go.
To our center
Thank you.
before you turn, it's on the right and you turn off.
No,
Is this the one?
not at all. This one is, this building is up on the, Park City Mountain Resort. And it is just right across the flat spot from the Bonanza lift. If you're familiar with the geography of the resort. Yes, sir.
Good.
A little bit better? Yeah. Okay, I will try to speak a little louder, thank you. All right, so, mining came to the Woodside Gulch area above Park City, and that's where this mine is located, Woodside Gulch. And it came in the 1880s with multiple mine workings, but the most successful of those were the Woodside, the Mayflower, and the Silver King mines. The initial owners and developers of these mines are shown here on this slide. And you might recognize these as members of an elite group of mine developers that were responsible for much of the early Park City mine development. The Silver King mine development began in 1893, and the company expanded with acquisitions of other mining properties in 1907. And that's when it became the Silver King Coalition Mine in 07. And it then merged with the Park Utah Consolidated Company in 1953 to become part of the United Park City Mines Company. Next slide.
Here we go.
Thank you.
So it's working.
The Silver King Coalition Mine was the most productive mine in the Park City district. The shaft, which is inside the building in that taller part, was eventually developed down to a depth of 1,325 feet and was a 3-compartment rectangular shaft. Other parts of the mine complex included a mill built in 1898, aerial tramway in 1901, replacement mill in 1922, and multiple other buildings.
We need to do.
This photograph taken around 1949 shows that the stacks that are in the foreground of the building are evidence of the boilers used to power the mine and to heat all the buildings. And note how the operations continued all year long. And note how the roof of the building is snow-free. This is a picture taken in the winter. And if any of you have been up there skiing, you know that that's not anything like how it is nowadays. The building is buried in snow every winter. And that's because the building was heated with steam heat and it's totally uninsulated. So the snow never accumulated on the roof. And since the building went cold in the 1950s, the roof has accumulated snow every winter and has suffered quite a bit from that snow loading, causing much damage to the roof. So this photograph kind of shows the whole mine complex, including the mine building, the tramway, the mill, the sampler building, coal bins, bunkhouses, a vault, and transformers. Quite an expansive operation. And the Silver King Coalition Mine operated until 1952, when it was closed by economics and a miners' strike. As part of the United Park City Mines Company in 1953, production stopped here at Silver King and shifted to what they call the Ontario section of United Park City Mines. And the shaft here was maintained just for exploration activities until demolition began in the 1970s. So by 1971, when this photograph was taken, the buildings were in somewhat degraded shape, and you can see demolition had started. By 2021, when this photograph was taken, the windows had been covered. You can see multiple repairs made to the sheathing on the walls of the building, various failures of the roof, and these are even much worse now. And the mining company backfilled the shaft with earth in the 1990s when they built the Bonanza lift, and they filled it to the ground surface at that time. I like this photograph. This is what we call the shaft room, and you're looking at a head frame, a steel head frame that was built in 1910. It's what we call a lattice structure, and only this one and the Daily West head frame up by the Montage still remain standing in the Park City area with this type of construction. Now you can see the floor has wood planking, and that covers the old location of a steam operated or steam powered hoist. Notice broken windows, vandalism, graffiti, and you can see that there's earth that has been dumped on top of the steel plates to cover the shaft. So I think this photo goes a long way to capture that historic value of this head frame. It's really a cool piece of equipment and the surrounding building. And this is why we wanted to preserve the Silver King Coalition mine, because of its importance. This photograph is looking west from under the head frame back to the back of the head frame and looking at the wall between the shaft room and the hoist room. And you can see the roof damage. It's a spreading problem in this facility. And the steam hoist was located right in the foreground here. And the compressor is still in the building, and it's in the room past the windows on the left-hand side of the photograph. So this is a photograph of the original hoist, steam-powered hoist that was installed in the 1890s. And the Silver King Coalition mine maintained and operated this as a steam-powered hoist until 1937, well past every other mine in the district which had converted from steam hoisting to electric powered hoisting. Also note the electric hoist behind the steam powered hoist and the flat rope that has been installed on the reels of the electric hoist. And so this photograph was taken shortly after the electric hoist was put into operation to replace the steam powered hoist and before the steam powered hoist was removed. Here's a photograph of the electric hoist taken shortly after it was installed in 37. You can see the flat hoisting rope installed on the reels, the round depth indicators with the needles on them, and modern electric controls. Now this is the same hoist room taken from a similar viewpoint in 2022, and the hoist is still in good condition. Since this was taken, there has been a lot more roof collapse. The dials have been damaged by the roof collapse, but the hoist itself is pretty bomb-proof and is still standing in good shape. And again, this head frame and now this hoisting equipment are very important historic artifacts of the history of mining in Park City, which is, again, all adds up to why are we doing this? Why are we trying to preserve these equipment? So here's a photograph of what the shaft looked like for years. This is the shaft opening in 2022. And you can see, you can walk right up to it, hang 10, right next to the shaft opening itself. This shaft had been filled to the surface in the 1990s. The earth backfill had settled, and at this point, there's a hole in the ground about 15 feet deep. And the earth behind the rectangular collar is caving. So there's kind of a crater, actually, with sloping sides that was developed around this. One of our major concerns is that the masonry footing on the front of the front legs of the head frame were exposed to the open shaft on two sides. And so the footings for these front columns of the head frame were losing their support because the earth was sliding into the shaft itself. And it potentially creating an unstable situation for footing. Here's a photograph of that footing. You can see the 1890s masonry construction of the footing under that front column. And you can see it's exposed on two sides to the opening. Not a good situation. That's not a stable foundation for a 40-foot tall column. So the concern that we had at Silver King is similar to what happened at Daly West. At Daly West, you had the shaft was starting to collapse. When the shaft collapsed, it actually created a bit of a crater, and so there were sloping sides that extended past the shaft opening itself and involved the footings for the front columns, the front legs of the head frame, and this was the result. So although our situation was less dramatic, obviously, than this, we were concerned about it. In 2021, Rio Tinto Kennecott Corporation donated in-kind services to the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History to do a downhole LiDAR survey of the Silver King Coalition mine and the Thane shafts. Here you can see one of their technicians getting ready to lower the instrument down into the Silver King's shaft. The data that was collected by this instrument provided very extensive and accurate dimensions for the shapes of these craters, these caverns that I've just been describing. So this is part of the product that they produced. And you can see this is for the Silver King Coalition mine. It shows how that shaft was widened and is actually shaped like a crater. Section AA prime is the north-south section looking west, and section BB prime is the west section looking north. So the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining took this product that was donated by Kennecott and provided these results to an engineering firm that we hired to do the design of the plugs and to cap this shaft. And that firm was Hydrogeologic Incorporated of Billings, Montana. We took the products that they produced, the drawings, the engineering, and the specifications, and provided that to the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. So the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining could then go ahead and build what the design was. The Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining did a procurement, interviewed a number of construction companies, ended up hiring a company called the 517 Company, and they are headquartered in Camas, Utah. They have a lot of experience doing work in shafts like this. And so UDOGM is paying for this work with funds out of the Utah Abandoned Mine Reclamation Program. And the work was accomplished to plug and cap the Silver King Coalition mine shaft last fall, mostly in October. So now I'm going to turn it over to Davey. He can talk about the different steps that were taken and what they did with photographic story.
Yeah, so for my part of the presentation, I'm just going to go through some of the construction photos we took in construction.
Your device is not working.
Test. You need to actually hold it closer. So the initial phase of the closure is pouring this polyurethane foam. It's much like the foam you get in spray cans for insulation. And we poured that at a depth of approximately 12 feet. And it's quite useful stuff in situations like this where you don't have a very uniform space because it'll expand, fill all the voids, really set solid, create solid flow, and prevent any further subsidence, sloughing of material to the shaft. Pouring the pump 3 days of work, just because when you mix it up, there is an exothermic reaction. As it's setting, it can get hot. If you pour it too quickly, it'll start to split. And if you pour far too quickly, it can actually ignite. So we definitely don't want that to happen. So we're going slow, pouring it in small lifts, then allowing it to cool. In the photo, you can also see this center pipe, which is a drain pipe we installed into the backfill underneath the path, and it runs through the path and the top concrete slab just to give drainage site. Once the foam was poured, we got to work on kind of setting up the floor. We had to remove all the material to 6 foot past the actual footprint of the shaft itself, just to give a solid footing for the concrete slab that was to be poured. This is looking to the west side of the shaft. And this dirt that the workers are moving here was actually part of the existing floor. So they're just leveling that out, ready for the slab. And then on the east side of the shaft, the floor was actually raised 4 feet above the dirt with these large timbers that you can see here. They used those timbers and then 2-inch board, then steel plate on top to level out the floor in the building. The furthest 2 timbers in this photo, we actually had to cut back, give space for that 6 foot offset, the shaft itself, for the concrete slab. These timbers actually were really in great condition, I think, because they were under those steel plates within the building. Completely soaked in this creosote material. They held up very well.
So were those timbers part of the original one?
Yes. When we were doing the work, it really allowed us to get into the opening once we pulled that up and really take a look at these masonry footings. This is the northern footing that where the material had really sloughed away. And this was about a 4 foot masonry that was exposed. The shaft behind us in that photo. You can see some of the timbers in this area right away, and we had to clear those out. The site and the top 18 inches of that footing is now what's tied into the slab. On the northern extent of the shaft was this utility chase. We cleared this out down to the dirt. And effectively, we left it like this for now. We plan to go back this year to tidy up at the site, and we're going to backfill this, and restore the floor how it was. Great. So clean crushed rock was bought from a commercial supplier and brought onto the site. This was used to go on top of the foam to level that out, like a good level base for the slab to be poured. And you can see that here, just in the buildings, workers leveling out that crushed rock there, and the skid steer in the background that was used to bring that rock into the building, piles outside. Once we had that gravel laid out, we set plywood forms just to hold the concrete as it sets. Again, you can see the pipe sticking out there, which goes all the way through the path down to the backfill by drainage, and also potentially in the future we can use that to monitor below the closure to see if that backfill is settled any further This is a similar photo, just looking at the northern masonry footing here. You see the crushed rock surrounding that and the 18 inches masonry ready to be tied into slab. Once we had the gravel and the forms in place, we put in 2 rebar meshes. A lower one of 1 inch rebar, and then the upper one of 1/2 inch rebar. These were suspended by these large girders using wires so that they hang in the center of the concrete. This gives the concrete kind of a structural element to the closure, meaning if any material does subside underneath the slab, it'll hold its own weight, safe, and it'll also provide enough support to those headframe footings. I was speaking to one of the contractors as we were doing this work, and they were saying that they see this specification of concrete slabs on bridges or multi-story car parks, so that kind of gives you an idea just how strong this slab is. And then here's another photo of that northern footing. You can see kind of the nooks and crannies in this sandstone brow, which was a really good surface for tying in with the concrete slab. We also, it's hard to see, but we drilled into this footing to install two rebar pins, which will tie in between the concrete slab and the footing. There's a bit of back and forth with the contractor before we drilled these pins, because we were really nervous of these footings failing. But when we eventually got around to drilling into them, the work that we did, the drilling said bit just went straight in, because the mortar was that soft. So really goes to show how unstable it is. Also, you'll notice this footing was tied into the old existing concrete floor. Kind of speculated that's one of the reasons it stayed in place all these years, even though this south and eastern side had sloughed away into the shaft. Yeah, so it's a good job. It's tied into the existing concrete there, and help to keep it in place. And then this is the southern footing for the head frame. You can see here we cut away the floor all the way around. This footing, there's actually just a wooden raised floor here too, so it's easy to get and to clear that space so that we can get the concrete slab all the way. And then again, this is just another photo of one of the rebar pins. This photo, again, similar. We ended up adding these 4 additional rebar pins into the existing concrete floor. So once that was all in place, the concrete was ordered. 3 concrete trucks were able to get up to the site, as well as this concrete pumping truck. So we were able just to pump the concrete straight from outside into the forms in the building with relative ease. This is a photo of that happening here. For me, this was kind of the most satisfying phase of the construction, because there's been a lot of prep work going into this, setting up forms, the rebar mesh, getting it ready for concrete. So as it was starting to be poured and taking form, to stand back and watch. So they poured the concrete across the whole footprint up to the first layer of mesh to embed that layer. Then start the whole process again up to the second layer once they got up to that second layer, they were able to remove the wires that were suspending the mesh, and then continue boring to the top of the forms to get the specified depth of at least 18 inches. So, yeah, and once full depth was poured, it's hard to see here, but the contractor has a skimmer there. They were able just to strike off the top of the slab, just to give it a smooth finish. And this is a great photo. Great photo of Brian demonstrating his skills and watching other.
Supervising, right?
And there's a photo just showing how the grade of that slab really ties in nicely with that metal column, base of the headframe column with the masonry footings, obviously above that. So there's, the final view of the concrete slab poured and skimmed. At this point, the slab needed to dry, and we were towards the end of the construction season, so we pretty much left the site similar to this. We secured the building, left it over winter time. So this year, we're going to go back. We need to do closure of the main shaft, but also tidy up at this building, place the steel plates on the floor, bring these vertical cage guides back into vertical farm, backfill this utility case, and also put the old safety railings back where they would have been when the shaft was operating, just so when visitors do come to the site, they have an idea of how it was looked when it was operating. This is the monument that we set into the slab. Just, we do this on all our closures across the state. It has this unique identifier for our database, just so we can look back in our records and know which closure it is. Now, this photo I just showed to anyone I can. It's a shame it's a bit washed out, but this was the first day of construction, just after sunrise. The four colors were on full show. This is actually the Silver King Mill building, just down Silver King shop. It's great.
Thanks, Davey. Once the concrete got placed around the footings of the headframe, and truly the masonry of those footings was pretty weak. The mortar was pretty rotten, 1890. And when I was up there and I saw what the Division of Oil, Gas and Mining had done to tie the concrete into those footings and also to support the footings down below with the crushed rock, I was able to sleep again. Because I was really nervous that at any time I could get a call from the resort saying, "You got to come up here. Silver King headframe's going over." It was really a real potential. Not any longer. So this summer, we're going to plug the subsurface caving in the shaft that's occurring underground at the Thane shaft. What's happened there is there's a rectangular concrete box that goes down to a depth of 55 feet called the collar, the shaft collar. That's in good shape. All of the timbers and everything inside that are in good shape. Below the bottom of that box, the shaft has collapsed. And all of the timbers have fallen in, and the ground outside the limits of the shaft is also falling. There's a cavern underneath the shaft, underneath that concrete box, the collar, that has spread over the years and destabilizes the entire headframe. So here again, we're looking at trying to save this site, but first we're going to stabilize the shaft so it doesn't fail and the headframe falls over. So the design for that is to fill that cavern underneath. Again, the debris that has fallen out of the void has actually plugged the shaft. So you can't see 1,700 feet down the shaft any longer. It's plugged at a depth of about 105 feet. But we don't know anything about that plug. We don't know how strong it is. We don't know how thick it is. And so we don't want to put a lot of heavy weight on top of it immediately. So again, the approach that the division takes is they put in multiple feet of this polyurethane foam, very light material, but very strong once it hardens up, and it intimately contacts the void. And so it's like a cork that you put in the bottom of this void that's not going to collapse any further down. And then the polyurethane foam can support the rest of the backfill and whatever else we're going to do to deploy that. And so that's going to be done there. The Thames building was extensively damaged in the record snowfall of 2022 and 2023. If you've been up there during the ski season, this last ski season, or maybe hiking, you'll see the entire roof structure of the Thames building is a wreck. It's collapsed. It's so have the walls. So we thought that the preservation approach we're thinking about is to try to restore something similar to what was there in the old days. I'm trying to see here. This is the hoist room that was built when the shaft was first built. And then the head frame is back over here. And then this is the boarding house. If you walk up there, you'll see all the wood debris from the boarding house. This is completely collapsed. And this building was expanded to connect this building here, the front of the building, with the head frame. All of the roof for this entire building has collapsed. And so our intention is to clean the site up and then restore the appearance with either fixing the walls, putting a new roof on, or restoring this with a new building to restore the site to what it looked like back in 1936. So we're not going to restore the whole big building. We're going to restore just the hoist house. Yes. So that work will be done this summer once we can get access up there. Davey's going to be practically living up there. He's up there every day, and the construction crew, of course, will be up there. Oops. Final slide, which is marketing slide. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that concludes our presentation of what we did last year at the Silver King Coalition Mine. And of course, we always try to end here with a plug for the Friends of Ski Mountain Mining History. And these are photos of our past successful preservation projects around Park City. And we greatly appreciated the support from our private donors, from the ski resorts themselves, from government agencies, of course, from the Division of Gas and Mining. But we have a lot of work yet to do. And so we encourage folks to think about your charitable donations. And if you can join our mission and support our mission with a donation, we would be very delighted to have you welcome you as part of our team. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions you have for myself or Dick.
Can you designate which mine you want your money to go to?
I
Yes.
think so.
Sally says yes.
That's a fast yes.
Silver King headframe building until we raise enough money to.
No, the answer's yes.
Yes, sir.
But how long will the funds or whatever you want to call them last?
Oh, that's a good question. Much longer than any of those, I think. I don't know a expiry date on those. So we do actually, so the puff closures, we will do without the concrete slab on top. So that is in itself a structural closure. The engineer originally designed this just with dirt backfill underneath the concrete slab to give us time to pour the slab. And then he said it he wasn't concerned after that if the material.
So 50 years, 75?
Oh, I'd have thought longer than that.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just wondering if it's the foam that deteriorates.
No, I think UV does break it down, but obviously where it is.
Very.
We'll worry about it next century.
Yeah. We'll be back in 100 years to close it again.
And remember how Davey described the backfill and the plug, and then the cap for Silver
Yeah.
King. A lot of effort went with the polyurethane foam and then the crushed rock backfill to bring it up to grade. But then there's an 18-inch thick, heavily reinforced concrete slab that extends past the limits of the void 6 feet.
Yep.
So the idea is that if there's some continued settling that happens in the shaft backfill itself, which then would affect the the plug that's been inserted, which it shouldn't because of the cork effect of the foam. But even if all that happens, this 18-inch concrete slab extends well past the limits of the crater. And so the goal is that it would be cantilevered out onto solid ground. And then, of course, it encases those front footings for the front columns of the headframe to stabilize them. It's pretty bomb-proof.
Mentioned it, don't worry about it. 150
Yeah,
years.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah.
You mentioned pretty quick.
Yeah,
Be a little careful about.
it is flammable even once it's set. So we have had instances where people have actually vandalized it and set it alight. So it's good that it's got such a big concrete cap.
Many people probably know this already, but can you describe the original fill, like in the, I guess, 1970s or 90s when they closed the shaft? What did they do then to close the shaft that's now settled? Like, what's down there?
Yeah. I have asked the mining company, Kerry D, if there's any records of that backfill operation, because the mining company did it. And he said there probably are, but he doesn't know where they are. So we haven't seen any records of it. It was done in the 1990s, about the same time they did the earthwork to install the Bonanza lift. Woodside Gulch used to continue clear up past the mine. And so there was a canyon that went past there. And when you go up there now, you see this big flat spot. That was built by the folks building ski resort. That never existed, so that's modern fill. And they cut back the mountainside on the north side of the actual Bonanza lift. You can see it's a big cut slope there. And that's the earth that they use to produce that flat spot. And they over excavated it to use that ground to backfill the shaft. When I first arrived on the site a couple of years ago to see what the shaft looked like, you could see that they had dismantled part of the front of the building, the walls and the ceiling, so they could bring their trucks into the building and then just dump down the shaft. Some of the damage that we see in the structure of the collar of the shaft probably was produced by dumping tons and tons of rock over all that structure and backfilling the shaft from the bottom up.
So they were just dumping stuff 1,700 feet down,
They were,
and it's going into drifts. And
yes, you would expect,
now all that is just settling with groundwater and.
and it's actually a little surprising. You can talk more about that, but it's actually a little surprising that when you dump all that backfill into a shaft like that, as you say, it can run out into the different levels. And depending upon the ground conditions and the groundwater conditions and what have you, that can be very unpredictable. And some of these shafts that have been backfilled that way have sunk quite a bit, and it creates a big void at the surface. So it's quite interesting that this shaft only settled 15 or 17 feet.
Yeah.
The King Kong shaft the Bogan shaft, right in the middle of Flame Chandler Run, has experienced some of what Brian describes, with all of the dirt running in the direction of the drifts and the stones and things. And as the ground settles, the shaft caves again and again and again. And it was filled at least twice with large amounts of just earth from right where it was. We went up there one time with Hal Compton and Sandra about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, long time ago, when we had a wet spring, and the shaft was about 400 feet across and about 50 feet deep. And it just happened after the snow melted and it collapsed again, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna collapse again.
Don't be hanging out.
Hanging out on a hot spring day, middle of
Sally, the rest of the people, how they look at this, you know, go right in.
I think part of the reason possibly why we didn't see something like that, or something like what happened at Daily West, happened at Silver King, is that the shaft at Silver King still has a pretty good roof over it. And so the weather doesn't impact the actual shaft location at Silver King like it does these other sites. And at Daily West, you remember that head frame was out in the weather. And so all the moisture was just impacting right on top of that shaft. We don't have that problem here at Silver King College. What else? Yes, Leslie.
Just like to thank the Department of Oil, Gas and Mining for partnering with us. This is between the Silver King and the Thames, that's a very large undertaking. It's close to $300,000 in federal funding that they were able to secure for us. And, for our little committee, that's big money. So we very much appreciate your partnership.
This is a pretty enjoyable project for me to work on. It's nice being up here in the summer. But yeah, you guys know our funding is actually to address the physical safety of these mine shafts. So to be able to tie that in with actually stabilizing these buildings and preserving history. Pretty enjoyable.
Thank you, so. Will you be putting the roof, or reinforcing the roof on the Silver King?
Yes. The
Replacing.
Silver King has this design for the roof, which is sort of self-destructive. And if you look at Silver King, you see that there's two levels to the roof. There's a lower roof all around the building, and then there's a higher roof. The higher roof is certainly on top of the tower that encloses the headframe, that very high. But you see there's a clear story windows, and there's a higher roof above those. So what happens over the winter is that the snow accumulates up to the eaves of the building. There's no place for the snow to slide off anymore. So the snow just accumulates on the roof. And then the snow in the spring slides off the high roofs, avalanches down, and hits the lower roof. And it seriously damages the lower roof. And so in the winter of 22-23, we had a lot of structural damage of the lower roof, not the upper roof, at Silver King. A lot of the structure, the purlins were bent. They disconnected from the trusses and so on. And so we're fixing that this summer. And so we're going in and we're replacing all of the bent purlins. We're rebuilding some of the trusses. We're going to plate over that new structure of the lower roof with what's called steel decking. And it's the same kind of material that you use to form floors in a multi-story concrete building. And it's much stronger than that corrugated metal that is on the roof now.
How thick roughly do you think most? Quarter inch, half?
Oh, no, it won't be that thick, but it's much stronger than the corrugated metal. Yeah, yeah. And so we'll bolt that down to the new structure. And then we'll put the corrugated metal, the weathered corrugated metal back on top. So it'll look like it did, but it'll be much, much stronger. We're also having talks with the resort, and I think that they're in place to do this. We're asking them during the course of the winter, can they come in with their snowcats and keep a little bit of freeboard between the snow level up against the building and the roof? So there's a place for the roof to unload and for the snow to slide off the roof, and then they can pull that back. And those discussions are ongoing. I think they're going to do that.
What's the cost of that roof rehabilitation?
$500,000.
So we're spending a lot of money to fix the roof, and the resort, I think, is doing their part as an operation.
And much of the steel is being donated by Pacific
Steel.
Steel.
Well, they're giving it, they're providing it at cost,
At
so
cost.
it's about a $50,000 savings if we had to pay for it.
So if you go up there hiking or biking, you'll see our crews up there all summer working on the roof. That's what we're doing.
Should be some windows that are, people can see through, so people don't tear off the siding all the time, so they can see inside.
That's our hope. We do plan to reglaze, we plan to take the covers off the windows and to reglaze all the window panes are shattered. To reglaze, clean out all the window panes and clean out the window panes to receive Lexan plastic. And that's bulletproof plastic. And we're going to reglaze the windows with Lexan. That's a project that we're going to be doing next year. If you go up there this year, you'll see that many of the windows on the east half of the Silver King building on the north side are actually blown out of the building. And I tell people this is a good example of no good deed goes unpunished. Because last fall, our concern about snow further damaging the structure of the roof, we took the roofing off. Large parts of the roof, if you were up there during the winter, the roof was gone because we took it off. The reason we took it off is so that we wouldn't have another Thames situation where the snow damages the roof structure so severely that the whole roof falls. I learned my lesson with Thames, and the lesson that I learned is it's the roof, stupid. And so we took the roofing off the damaged part of the roof at Silver King, so that if the snow loaded on it during this last winter, it wouldn't collapse the whole structure. But in so doing, we exposed that whole part of the building, the east half. This spring, there was an avalanche of snow off the high roof. And it came down and impacted the inside of the wall because there was no roof there any longer. And it must have been an explosive kind of an impact because it basically blew the walls and the windows right out of the. Oh no, I got something else to fix.
So you've kind of said this with the window thing. Do you have a grand vision, like an ultimate? I realize that each one of these steps is a ton of money and a ton of time. But do you have an ultimate of like, will that building be, people will ski by and look in the windows and things, that kind of thing with the four little signs.
Right. So we'll restore the windows so you can see inside the building. And hopefully the vandals can't knock them all out again. And we intend, the museum intends to have guided tours into the building. Once we get it stabilized, we clean out the inside of the building so that we can have guided tours. That'll start to happen. And because we think it's really an attraction for people to go inside and see the mining equipment that's in there. And of course, it'll be much nicer once we get it done and cleaned up. So that's the goal. There has been talk about, gee, wouldn't it be nice to restore the building so you could have a coffee house or a restaurant, that kind of stuff. And the answer to that is no. And the reason is a good one. The building, when it was built, the existing building was built basically in the period 1910, 1920 vintage. There were no building codes in 1910, 1920. And so the building does not comply with any of the modern building codes for public occupation. Now, if you go in there, you're willing to sign on the bottom line for a full indemnification like you do every time you buy a ski ticket. That no matter what happens to you, no one's responsible for your harm. Then yes, then people can go in the building under those conditions and have a docent, a guided tour, so that was wandering around. That's okay, but the building is never going to be general occupancy.
If you looked at the early pictures that Brian showed of the silver paint headframe building, basically we want to restore it to that. We want to look like it did 100 years ago. Without the smokestack, we're not going to put smokestacks back up. But other than that, it'll look from the ski slopes like it did 100 years ago. That's the goal.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
Well, if you just put the steam plant back in there, Brian, and ran it in the winter, you'd never have any snow on it. You wouldn't have any issues.
Just keep the fires going all year long.
Absolutely.
Still
Great
there. You want to take that on?
Yeah, I'm an engineer.
Comment way in the back.
I think a lot of people don't understand stuff like that buildings behind that. Big smoke. Bill, does it have a shaft? What's the stat? I mean, how related is it?
It's a huge building. It was an integral part of the whole operation. The building that we see now was built, dedicated in 1922. It replaced the original mill building, from 1898 that burned down in 1921. And, almost all of the processing equipment has been removed from the mill building itself. And the mill building is also a physical wreck. The roof is falling in, the walls are in really bad shape.
And it's full of asbestos, don't go in there.
Oh, now you tell me.
Yeah. We used to have picnics there all the time.
So that's currently not on our list of things to do anything with that building. Our plate is pretty full doing what we plan to do at the Silver King Coalition mine. And then up at Thames, to clean that side up. I mean, it was just wrecked by the snow of 22, 23. So there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done there. And then, we're working this summer with the division to stabilize the shaft. But then after that, what do we do to protect that equipment that's in the hoist house? There's a compressor and there's electric equipment and there's a hoist, Northern hoist there.
And Bob Foster's car's in there.
Yeah.
That's a truck.
It's a car.
In the mill.
It's a car, she drove it, she was the cook at Silver King, and she was quite heavy. And the springs, you'll notice, are all sprung on the driver's side.
But by the way, if someone would like to take that on that project, please contact Brian and Ryan. And really, our goal was, and this is the agreement we had between the city of Vail when they connected the canyons to the Park City, is that our top focus were the 7 mining structures that people could see when skiing at Park City. And we also had, in addition, the 2 at Deer Valley, which is the Daily West headframe as well as Little Bell Orbit. So when we complete the Silver King headframe building and the Thames building, we will have completed the initial agreement that we had back in 2015 of saving these structures. I would love to do the bill. It's probably a $5 million project, because the Silver King headframe is $2 million, and that's actually smaller than the mill. So that's a huge undertaking, and I will not be running that project. I'm not fundraising for that.
We're volunteer.
We need, that's a big ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was late. I'm coming from Heber, and the transportation between Heber and Park City leaves a lot to be desired in my book. I just moved here 4 months ago from the Bay Area and near San Francisco. And my question for you is, what's left of the hoist in the Silver King? Is it still in place, or is it totally knocked down?
It's all still there.
That's what my father was a hoist operator for the Silver King mine.
Oh,
And that's why I'm back in Park City. I'd like to have a ride or someone tell me how to get back to Fresh Market so I don't miss my bus home. Thank you. I'm not doing that.
Probably I'm gonna go through that.
What was his name? What was his name? Oh, my father's name was Hugh Chamberlain. Chamberlin. He's probably about 6'6". And he died in 1955, with, lung cancer, 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And, I did have an interesting experience. My husband and I came up here one time, and, we were at another portion of the Silver King that had train tracks up on the side of the hill. I
right.
don't know the area that well. I was not raised here. I was raised in California. But there was a uranium, I think, mining company that was doing some research work. And so this is probably, my kids were born, so it was in the 70s that we came here. And we went in there past gates that say, stay out, blah, blah, blah. That didn't matter to us. We're railroad buffs too, so that helped. But we went in and my husband says, now let me do the talking. And I went, okay. And we came up upon this gentleman who came out of this mine shaft that had cars full of stuff. And so my husband explained that my father used to work at this mine, and we were just running to walk around. Would it be okay? We didn't want to get arrested. And so they had a very pleasant conversation, and then finally he turns to me and he says, ma'am, what was your father's name? Now, this is like in the 70s. My father died in 1955. This guy looked like he was about in his 30s. And I gave him my father's name, and he says, he is still talked about. He was one of the best hoist operators we had in Park City. And so I was just so thrilled. And I'm now back here. My husband's gone, unfortunately. But I am delighted to live in New City. It was the closest place I could get to Park City, closest to Debbie.
Welcome.
Lots of things I can
Well, stay in touch with us, because when we get the building a little safer than it is now, I'd be happy to take you up there. You can take a look at the place.
And we can also take you inside the Spiro Tunnel, which, when it closed, was part of the Silver King mine.
That's probably where this guy
I'm
was.
thinking that's
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Cause they had mine
Because
tours
that
there.
still had cars coming and going.
yes, yeah. That,
So we can take you back in there.
oh, that would be cool. I would love anything like that. I can't do all the hiking that I want to do so badly.
Neither can I.
Because of my legs. And I'm 79 years old, and I am just wanting to keep living.
Good for you.
Anything else, folks? Well, thank you so much for your interest.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Davey.
Who took all those pictures? Did you?
They're wonderful. Okay, I need to get your name and phone number.
Okay. I have no problem with that. In fact, I'll give you my business card. Anybody else wants?
Well, I'll give my phone.
Better have to be. Yeah. Yeah. There's that. road that way to the road. And that's because, yeah. I'll stay there.
Oh, good to see you, Sally.
Oh, okay.
She steals all my.
Yeah.
Big man on
Steel is separate front, you got to get it. He doesn't want it all on the back.
Donald, he's got one. I'll share.